Hello, and welcome to the Boost Over Ball podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Boost Over Ball podcast. I'm pleased to announce that we have partnered with Rocket League Community Clips on Discord and on YouTube. Please feel free to go ahead and join their Discord channel. I will put it in the episode description, as well as it's on our Discord server. But it is a community-driven server that you can submit your Rocket League clips to, and it will post to their YouTube channel daily of clips from the community. So we're very excited to be able to give all of our listeners the opportunity, if you play Rocket League, to have your clips featured on their channel. Let's jump into, I guess let's do our first thoughts first. What did you think of the event? What did you think of the entire, I guess, competitive scene over the weekend?
First off, absolutely some of the most exciting Rocket League I've ever seen. I mean, Worlds last season, going to Worlds, that was exciting, but somehow this felt just as impactful. It was wonderful to watch. I think in a lot part because of this podcast, because of us talking about it and me getting more into it through this podcast. It was so much energy for me. I was incredibly excited going into it. But I will say, one thing I did not like was the time difference, because trying to watch these games at 2 a.m., well, it gave me mixed results. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, the podcast has definitely helped feel more in tune with it. Like, I know a lot of people in the U.S., I'll transition a little bit, but a lot of people in the U.S. have gotten into Formula One racing recently because of the Netflix series. And I feel like it's easier to get into for people because they know the players, they know the people, and they know the teams involved, right? And so, like, I feel like that's how it is for us, right? So I know all the players involved, I know all the people competing for spots, I know the teams, I know, what how they like to play. So being able to watch with all of the background knowledge makes it almost more exciting and easier to kind of understand the storylines that the broadcast team tries to convey.
Oh, absolutely. The storylines are really where I think you hit that right on the head there. It's the storylines. The storylines are fantastic. Being able to know, and us talking about them and digging into it and understanding like where these people have come from, how they've, even, what is it? Feels like a lifetime ago, but they had the roster apocalypse between this season and last season, so we had no idea what we were getting. And then because of some of the moves, like with Gen G moving from EU to NA, we had no way really to predict what would happen when they finally ran into their old, would it be league mates? I don't know.
Fellow continent mates?
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know.
They're all continent mates, because like they, man, it's so much better. It adds a whole nother layer being able to actually know these players' names and where they're from and who they've played against and with before, because then you can kind of see, oh, they kicked that guy off the team and now he's whooping their butt.
Yeah, no kidding. But speaking of getting your butt whipped, our predictions.
Oh yes. Well, our predictions, we just mathed it out with our very complicated mathing, and we were both 5 for 8 of our predictions.
For the
I
people making
predicted,
it into the Swiss.
yes, yes, oh yes, for players making or for teams making it into Swiss, I had FaZe, Gen.G, Liquid, Carmine Corp, and Moist, and then I missed on Quadrant Club and Falcons.
And I, on the other hand, had Carmine Corp, Liquid, Gen.G, Moist, and V1 making it in, and I notably missed out on Space Station, G2, and Pioneers. And I also add a honorable mention. I talked quite a lot about FaZe not making it in, and that was not quite right.
You did. You went hard on him too. I was like, man, don't hurt him.
Hey, I mean,
But I mean, I also, because of my poor math skills, was like, you know what? It's gonna be 4-1 EU NA, and that wasn't right at all. I think that we ended up with what, 7 NA EU combined, and then one SAM. So more NA made it than I originally thought.
yeah, we had FaZe version 1 and Gen G. So you're pretty close with 3 NA teams, 1 SAM team, and 5 EU teams.
Wait a second.
Hold
Math on that.
Four. Sorry.
There you go.
3 NA, 1 SAM, and 4 EU teams.
Oh, we're real good at math.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember like one of the matches, one of the series I actually watched was the deciding factor on whether it was going to be NA or EU heavy, and it was so exciting. Now off the top of my head, I cannot remember which one that was, but I'll find that out and I'll yell it out in a moment.
Moist G2.
Yes, yes, that sounds right.
Yeah, that went
Oh,
that went to game
G2.
5, and G2 ended up losing.
Yeah, they did. Okay, well, that's our predictions. I did call it overall. I went back and double checked because I wasn't sure, but yeah, Gen G, I was right.
Yeah, no, you definitely predicted better than I did that time, and including I'll even not dock myself some extra points because I said Pioneers would get in the Swiss, and they did not take a single match in the tournament, nor did James Cheese. But nice.
I was watching and I was laughing so hard because I remember you were so for Pioneers, and I was just like, okay. And then yeah, James Cheese and Pioneers did not. They just 0-9. That's rough.
It is.
That's rough for them.
It is. But that being said, let's jump into the Swiss stage. Let's start out with, in your opinion, the biggest disappointments, not necessarily for you personally, but like as for teams that, definitely think that they should be competing, on Championship Sunday.
Well, I mean, the obvious call out is going to be G2, right? They placed second overall. They were the runner-up world champs last season, and the actual world champs didn't even make it, right? So it's interesting to see that G2 again is seeming to fall short because they didn't even make it into playoffs. And honestly, the most surprising thing was them getting swept by Power. I didn't watch that series. Did you catch it?
They just did not look good. They looked uncomfortable the entire way through. Power, were able to kind of have their way, right? There were 2 1-goal games, including an overtime, but I mean, G2 scored 2 goals the entire series.
Oof.
They were just able to impose their will.
Well, and it's interesting because you look at their lineup in Swiss, They lost oxygen. They get swept by power, and then they sweep uh, James Cheese and Falcons, who were definitely the lower performing teams on in this tournament, and they go up against Moist, and they go to Game 5, and Moist was looking incredible. So I'm surprised they went to Game 5 there, because it looked like every time G2 ran against a top tier team, they just could not finish the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a mentality thing. It kind of seemed like it took them a while to ramp up, right? Because like that, or they had a bad day one, because that would be, day one is round one and round two, so that's their loss to oxygen and power. Maybe they weren't properly prepared for those matches, but then they had a pretty decent, day two, day three, getting a couple wins and taking Moist to 5. But I mean, that they're definitely a team that feels like they should be competing, for major wins, not just playoff appearances, especially being your runner-up world champions. Another team that sticks out to me as some more disappointments would be Space Station. We've been pretty vocal about how we both like the Space Station roster and team. We are fans of them at Worlds. But in the offseason they drop Reddles and they pick up LJ. That's a roster move that looked pretty good for them throughout the fall regionals. They were able to place third to fourth in the losing in the quarterfinals every single time, making it into the major. But they're a team that needs better results, right? Falcons took them to 5 games, but Karmine Corp and Secret and FaZe all made quick work of them. So really the only kind of teams that they were able to beat this regional is teams that didn't make it out of the Swiss.
Well, and you look at these and you kind of see that there's like tiers, right? There you have your teams that are going to be top 4 pretty much every time, and then you have teams like Space Station. They're good, and I really, I really did become a fan of them, but there's something missing. There's something missing in their play style, because when they do come up against those, that top tier, the top tier, the Karmine Corps and honestly Secret was such a surprise this tournament. And we can talk more about that later. I don't want to distract myself, but yeah, Karmine Corp, Secret, FaZe, and they just dropped the ball. From what I saw, I watched the Space Station Gaming FaZe match, and it really just seems like they have too many people trying to make plays and get their name yelled by the audience, right? As opposed to actually being team players and doing stuff like that. It seems to be too many people trying to make the cool shot, I guess. Their play seems to be a bit too selfish from what I've seen.
Yeah,
poorly opinion.
I mean, I could buy that. I mean, I feel like based on the people that they've picked up and the type of games that they want to play, they want to be the NA's version of Liquid. So Liquid, all 3 of them are incredibly mechanical players. They're all very gifted. They can hit the highlight reel shots, and they can pop off at any time. But I mean, you saw them make runs through power, through quadrant. They were the only team to sweep Secret all event, and they were able to do it based on physical demo plays and highlight reel solo plays. So but they play a team centric game that allows them the space to be able to bring out their mechanics, which I think is what I think personally Space Station needs to focus on moving forward, because I think that they have too talented of a roster to fall short like this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then
go
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add to that. Just like whenever they start to lose, they seem to their reaction seems to be, well, we'll just play even better, and they get it just compounds upon itself. They start going for even more crazier shots, solo plays, as when they're winning, they seem to have no problem passing. But yeah, anyway, that's enough beating up on SSG. I'm just
Fair.
disappointed in them.
Yeah. But one last team, and I'm curious about this one. Do you think Falcons is a disappointment?
um, I wish I had a better opinion of this, but I honestly have not paid as much attention to Mina, so I don't know. I
I'm,
don't know if they're a disappointment or not.
I mean,
I,
it was kind of a two-team region, more so leaning towards Falcons as they got their spot, but it's a team we've seen on the world stage a few times now, making it, making it like playing in Worlds. They had the cup that they played in the offseason in Saudi Arabia that they made it to the grand finals of. They've won on the world stage before. I mean, the Sunless Khan video about Sandrock Gaming, which then became Falcons, kind of made a lot of those guys, Ahmed, Okhalid, and TRK, household names for NA people specifically. But I mean, I think that they would have expected better. But
Absolutely, I could see that. But I mean, they also got swept by G2, who was not performing very well. So I think that they probably underperformed, if anything. But I also I don't get the feeling from them that they are, at least this season, that they're going to be in that top eight. I think they ended up where we'll probably see them unless they can change some things around. Because they didn't run up against very strong. They lost to Space Station, as we talked about. Space Station was not playing that well either, and they lost to G2. And both those teams, I think, rightfully ended up not making it in the playoffs.
yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that it's probably a disappointment to them to not make Swiss, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, with as competitive as NA and EU especially has been, those top eight Swiss spots are going to be really hard to come by. So, and as shown by Space Station G2, you just can't have an off day. If you're going to a major, you have to be on your game, or you will not make it.
Absolutely. I mean, and that leads into what do you see on here that was just not a surprise at all?
Carmine Corp. They 3-0. They lost one match. They showed up. They took care of business. They have Vatira, arguably the best player in the world. They showed up and did exactly what everyone expected them to do.
There, for me, it was Gen G, of course. I was rooting for them. Actually, what scared me the most watching this was the Oxygen getting swept by Oxygen, and I was like, oh no, is Gen G not going to hold up? And I think that we talked about it when it happened because in the uh,
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. It was Leafex, Brody.
yeah, yeah, the interview afterwards, the guy's just like, do you think that Gen G left EU because they couldn't compete? And yeah,
Jorius.
Jorius was just like, that's a toxic question. Like, he handled it like a champ. Like, Jorius won so much respect for me because he could have easily have started trash talking anything. Instead, he just called out for what it was. Like, that's a toxic question. They're doing great. They just didn't win that game against us, right? And like, but yeah, I mean, Jorius was playing out of his mind that series also.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean
it,
that question aged pretty poorly. Uh, as
yeah, it did.
they ended up winning the whole thing. But
Yep.
so from disappointments to uh, just right on your expectations, what was, in your opinion, the biggest surprise of the Swiss stage?
Uh, Biggest surprise at Swiss stage for me, honestly. I would tie it up between G2 being absolutely just not there, not making it out Swiss, but more on the negative end. On the positive end is Team Secret. Nobody expected Team Secret to, we expected this Team Secret, kind of down with Pioneer and James Cheese because this Furia was the main name back last season, but Secret's been doing what they need to do, and now they look like they're incredibly competitive because they didn't get softball teams either. They lost to Liquid, but then they beat Quadrant, they beat SSG, and then they also beat Moist, who ended up taking second in the overall event. So like they held up pretty well. I was very surprised by Secret.
Yeah, I can echo that as well. From getting in to the major on a tiebreaker to top 4 in the Swiss. I mean, I did not think that they were going to make it out of the group. I thought if any SAM team was going to make it out, it would have been the club. But, I was certainly proven wrong there. I mean, the club was able to handle everything pretty easily throughout their split, but it would appear to me that on the world stage, Team Secret was the far better team. So maybe it's just a case of, the club has had their number, kind of moving forward in their region, but that they stack up better against international competition in different play styles. So, but all in all, a fantastic showing for them, getting top 4. So I could not be more surprised with anybody's performance.
An interesting thing I see is that Secret and Club both played SSG and Moist, and it just went the opposite way for the club than it did for Secret. But I'm excited to see what happens next time. How many months do we have before the next one of these?
Before the next major, we got it's the beginning of February. No, I'm sorry.
Not so bad.
April, I believe.
Yeah, it'd be the winter major, right?
Yeah, the winter major.
April 6th through the 9th.
Yeah, but the next events we can talk about later. But so then, I guess my next question is for teams like G2, for teams like Space Station, for other teams that didn't make the top 8 in Swiss. Where do you go from here? Do you stand pat? Do you make a roster change, a coaching change? What do you think?
For me, I mean, I want to see SSG swap out coaching because it's not a talent issue. They have very talented players, and if anything, I would say they need to get a coach that can actually help dial back their egos and play more as a team, and we'd see them easily start making it into these Swisses and taking at least 4th. G2, I don't know what's going on with them, man. And that's about as far as I can speculate. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, I feel like Space Station, G2, they both have the pretty big roster moves that they make. G2 before the World Championships, bringing in Atomic. Space Station after Worlds, dropping Reddles and picking up LJ. So I feel like a roster move isn't necessarily the right call, as both of those are relatively new rosters. I think Falcons is going to stay the same. I think, OCE is just a constant turnover on teams. But I have Pioneers have stuck with their roster for a while and they've had success before. So I can see both them and Power staying pat. I'm not sure about Quadrant and other teams in Europe, but now that we're after the fall major, we got the next transfer window coming up here. So I'll be very interested to see what some of these teams do if they make any drastic roster changes. Like I know Furia dropped Kaio, and there's rumors about them picking up Justin from NRG, and Percy from the US, who's currently a free agent. There's a couple different options, so should be a pretty interesting transfer window for the teams that did not perform as they expected at the fall major.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very curious to see if it's going to be as turbulent as the last time as preseason was with all the roster changes. I think we may see a bit more shuffling around in NA than we will in EU. Mostly just because NA does not seem to be. I still stand by. I don't think NA is as strong as EU, and well, it's not fair because they play in NA, but Gen G is primarily an EU team, and they're still, and they're dominant. And yeah, they're playing in NA, but that's only that's a new thing. I wouldn't call them like NA by any means, and you can tell there's something in the play style or the way that they handle the game that they're better.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Moving on from the Swiss, let's jump into the playoffs from Championship Sunday. I think that in the quarterfinals, especially, that Moist looked dominant in that series against Karmine Corp. I mean, they're all relatively close games. They're all 1-goal games, but I think that Moist was able to impose their will. Astral absolutely had a phenomenal series, as this is kind of the Vatira Astral grudge match. They kind of had an unofficial trade going on with Vatira going to Karmine Corp and Astral going to Moist, and I think that was a very entertaining series to watch. Watching, kind of a bunch of mechanical wizards go at it.
Absolutely. And also in the quarterfinals, another series that very fun to watch. If anybody wants to go back and see a good series, but the Secrets absolutely just wiping the floor with V1. To be honest, it's unfortunate because V1 was showing pretty good all throughout Swiss, and then they are pretty close games, and they're 1-goal games. 3 of them were going. I guess almost every one of them was a 1-goal game, 2-goal game, so they were pretty close overall. But it just Team Secret showed up.
Yeah, they certainly did to move them into top 4. But Oxygen FaZe. FaZe bested Oxygen on Champions Field to move into the semis, and none of the games in the series were that close. Right? There were no 1-goal games. Most of them are multi-goal wins for for teams in both directions, right? So when Oxygen was winning, they were winning by a lot, or when FaZe was winning, they were winning by a lot. But again, we kind of see the power of the tactical timeout all throughout the weekend. Really, I think that games after a tactical timeout, teams were had 100% win percentage, and this series is no different, with FaZe taking a timeout after game 2 and winning 2 to tie up the series, then an Oxygen timeout and a win in game 5 before FaZe takes the final 2 games. But a kind of a weird series, very back and forth, but the games were pretty lopsided during them.
Well, I mean, then you look at the final game in the quarterfinals. You got Gen G and Team Liquid. Absolutely phenomenal series. They also were very close. I think every game, one game was a 2-goal differential, but the rest were 1 goal between them. And it's similar to what we've seen in other things. It's good coaching and it's good mentals, because you have Team Liquid taking the first 2 games in a Gen G timeout, and then they take a game, and Liquid takes a game, and they take 2 more, and then Liquid takes their timeout, and it just didn't end up working out for them because Gen G takes it 1-0 in Champions Field. But that's fascinating to me, that one hiccup of theirs, because as we've talked about before, Gen G goes on to win it after this, and like that series was probably the defining moment on them making on who won the Worlds, or not Worlds, the Fall Major. Yeah.
I mean, I personally think that series was the best of the tournament, the best of the playoffs. Certainly was the closest. They had highlight reel plays from both sides. It was a very back and forth, and it was a ton of fun to watch. Gen G certainly did very, very well to beat an in-form and firing on all cylinders Team Liquid. But moving into the semifinals, Moist ends Team Secret's run. Top 4 is phenomenal for Team Secret, as we talked about before, but Moist is they were just better in the series. Astro continued to show up, continued to show out for Moist, and show them why that was a good pickup for them. Highlight reel goals, dunk goals, and Joyo with some physical bumps, demos to clear the way for his teammates to get some easier goals, to get to be able to use their mechanics. It was a great showing from Moist.
Absolutely. I mean, to add on to that, like, I loved every time I got to watch Moist in this event. Considering their loss to Furia in the Worlds, like, that was a very hard loss for them. in at Worlds, and I'm excited to see that they're still just as good as they were then, and they're still a top team. I mean, obviously they ended up second in this event, right? Um, but man, do they play a very good game. They're very entertaining to watch. Um, but then our other semifinals game was not very close. It was FaZe versus Gen G, and uh, Gen G kind of just had it in the bag the whole time. I mean, there weren't any runaway games. There weren't any games where Gen G had a whole bunch of points on top of FaZe. But when I was watching it, it never really felt like FaZe was, you know, dominant in that game. It felt like Gen G had the game under control pretty well.
I would agree. I mean, the kind of the joke and nickname, maybe a little bit less of a joke now, but Fourth Clan, right? Fourth in the Worlds, fourth in the summer split. Before that, fourth in this major. I mean, they do well enough to get through. They looked good against Oxygen. They looked good in Swiss, but just kind of outclassed by Gen G.
Yeah, and then moving on into our grand finals, which excellent series to watch, by the way. I mean, all of these. This was such a good weekend for Rocket League. If it wasn't at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit easier for me starting at 5 in the morning because I'm in the Eastern time zone. But yeah, I mean, Gen G just overpowered Moist. I think that Astro continued to show his incredible play, but I think that Chronic showed up at the perfect time. Chronic really carried this Gen G team all of Sunday, I think. Flip reset goals, doubles, physical play. He was opening up, lanes for his teammates. He was finishing really well. Just an absolute incredible showing from Chronic.
Absolutely, and to kind of add back into our conversation a bit about teamwork, and what makes a good team and what makes them get to this point is like watching Gen G play. That final game, the game that won them the event, the goal that won the event was from. Oh no, I just lost the name as I was thinking about it. Hold on, getting it. Nolly. Nolly had an opportunity to take what would have been a pretty dangerous shot, and instead made just an absolute phenomenal pass down to apparently Jack, who was able to just boop right on in without an issue, and that won them the major. Like, that play alone is like masterclass on how to not be selfish and play as a team. I don't know if you. I mean, you probably saw it, but like I was sitting there and I was cheering so loud. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what a play!" And to just not, because he had a really nice angle, but he went for the pass instead. It was just it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised. I didn't know that they would be capable of doing that because they left EU because they couldn't compete, right?
Oh yeah. By the way, they left the EU because they couldn't compete.
It did not age well, and we've talked about that before. But a fantastic victory for Gen G. Congratulations to them for winning the 2022 Fall Major. I think they look to bring this momentum into the winter split. But transitioning to another tweet topic that didn't age well. All of the hate that the NA fans got leaving the World Championships after Team BDS wins.
Oh, I'm not aware of this.
So
spill that tea.
Karmine Corp is a Dutch-heavy team. They are based in the Netherlands, and once Karmine Corp was knocked out by Moist in the quarterfinals, a majority of the pro-Dutch, pro-Karmine Corp crowd left. It's encapsulated in a tweet by Widow, who, basically said kind of the same things that, and people were giving the NA crowd a hard time because they left they left the World Championships early, but then did the exact same thing. So I know, like, people like Johnny Boy, people like, some of the other casters and talent that the RLCS has were very hard on U.S. fans for leaving after their team was defeated in the grand finals, but they turn around and do the exact same thing.
It makes sense. You can look at any. I don't I don't condone it. Like, be there, support the game, support the sport. Be there and be supportive whether your team wins or loses. Like, that's where I'm at. I was just happy to watch the Rocket League, but I also understand it. If you watch any major sports game, like if you go to watch, I don't know, football, Seahawks versus some other football team, because I know football, and like the Seahawks lose, like you're not gonna sit around and watch the other team cheer if you're really a big Seahawks fan. I don't think it's the greatest look, but I also can understand why people are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a dumb conversation to begin with, right? I mean, like you said, I'll use the World Cup as an example, right? So England just lost to France a couple days ago. The English fans aren't going to sit around and watch the French fans celebrate. No one is. That's just not how it works. So, like, it's just a kind of a bad comment to begin with on how, everybody needs to be staying to watch the other team celebrate. Like, you don't have to do that. You're not obligated to do that. Stay, enjoy the Rocket League, enjoy the weekend, but you're still allowed to be pissed that your team lost. It happens. It's part of the sport. So, I mean, exactly. I don't understand people being so pretentious about it. Your team loses, that's fine. It happens. But you can be mad and you can leave if you want to. Doesn't make you not a fan of the sport. Doesn't make you a bad person. It just happens.
Yeah. I mean, is it rude to the people? Is it rude to the people who made a movie if you leave before you watch the credits?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But it feels like the same thing. It's like what you came to see is over, so leave.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you.
Although, I will say, and I don't know what this says about me, but I had those same kind of tweet-like feelings when I went and watched the latest, the latest Marvel movie, Wakanda Forever, and like the credits started, people started leaving. I was like, you're not gonna wait for the thing after the credits? Come on.
Yeah.
I got more upset by that than I should have, and I just laughed to myself about it later. But also, like, yeah, the pandemic was hard, man. I lost all ability to socialize.
Didn't we all?
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our coverage. Unless, actually, we could talk about. Do you want to talk about the player accolades from the RLCS analysts and administrators? I thought they were pretty interesting this time around.
Yeah, let's go for it. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So they give out these little awards based on who they think had the greatest impact on these different categories. So for the Fall Major Offensive MVP, it was Vatira on Karmine Corp. As you talked about before, Vatira, in your opinion, is the greatest player in the world. That sounded way more snippy than I meant it to. Anyway, Fall Major Defensive, we're looking at KV1 from Team Secret. Makes sense. They went way further than anybody expects them to, and I think that the announcers and analysts believe KV was a big portion of that. And then the Fall Major MVP, just overall best player, most important player, is apparently Jack from Gen G, and I fully agree with that. Even though they did say right at the end that Nolly may have taken the MVP with that pass, but that was like one major play, and apparently Jack was just solid the entire event. Thoughts, feelings, comments, concerns about those?
I mean, Vatira, offensive MVP. I agree. I think maybe you can make an argument for Astral or for a Chronic from Liquid, but that makes sense. Major MVP, I definitely agree with KV1. That he played phenomenally. He had just a boatload of saves. He played very, very well and helped backstopping Team Secret to top 4. However, the Fall Major MVP, I can get behind apparently Jack, but I really think Chronic should take this one. Apparently Jack's teammate, I think carried Gen G on that last day, especially. But he had some really good high level play the entire weekend. So I would have loved to see Chronic win that one, but I'm not upset with with apparently Jack getting it either.
I can definitely see for Chronic. I mean, this was his rookie event, right? And he won it. So he is now. Oh my God! I don't know if you saw the interview with the team afterwards when they were getting their trophy and everything like that. They interviewed Chronic, and he's a rookie. It's his first time being in front of a live audience, first time up for any of this, and there's like, do you have anything to say? And he's just like, I don't know what to say. He just basically kept saying that over and over, and I was like, I feel that in my bones. Oh, one thing actually, I'm gonna circle way back because I forgot to talk about it, and I thought it was like one of the most incredible things is, now this is way back in Swiss, so, version 1 versus Team Liquid, game 2 was a huge record breaker in a lot of different ways. Did you catch that game?
I did.
So 10 minutes 38 seconds overtime. It was 0-0, with version 1 eventually losing. But in that one game, version 1 got Beast Mode got the highest single score players made in one of these. I think that he had 1,300 points. I think somebody on Team Liquid got most saves of any player in a game. I don't remember what all the stats were. It was intense. It was just a crazy game. If you not watch any other single game, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, longest game, most saves by a team, most saves by a player, highest score by a single player, most shots by a single team. It was a tremendous game of Rocket League, and we got, kind of 3 for the price of 1. 10 and just over 10 and a half minutes of overtime in one game is just crazy.
Yep, new records. I mean, that just add that to the pile for version 1. They may not ever make it to a podium, but man, do they hold a lot of records now. They, what was it?
Most
the
demos.
First event of the year? Yeah, first event of the year, I think. They got 20, or COM got 22 demos in a game, and yeah. So they should just line up all of the world records that they have and call that a win.
But no, that they've done well. So I'm happy that that I got to see it, which is awesome.
All right. Well, I think that is a good place to bring us into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is, let's see how smart Cube is today. And who are we talking about?
And now for a player spotlight. Pretty on the spot here because we were talking about him right there at the end, but we're gonna take a look at Chronic. So Nick Chronic Iwanski was born September 5th, 2005, which currently makes him 17 years old. The American-born player began his professional career in 2018 with various money tournaments and things that he's allowed to compete in, quote-unquote underage for Psyonix guidelines, before joining his first roster of Upper 90 Esports in 2019. He then made the move to Stromboli in 2020 before bouncing between the Rejects to OSTYN to the Randoms and to Stormtroopers before finally settling in with his new English teammates at Gen G in September of 2022. He has really been able to flourish in this role as not necessarily as third man, but kind of as a supporting cast member to apparently Jack and Nolly. They kind of Jack and Nolly kind of call him the honorary Englishman. And he's been able to really take his role and run with it. We saw on Championship Sunday him really flourish and showcase his abilities, and his incredible mechanics and speed allowed him to dictate play And after winning the first split, they will only look to continue their domination moving into the winner split.
Well, thank you very much for that. I know so much more about Chronic.
Oh, yeah.
The player.
Yep.
All right. Well, what do we got coming up next?
Well, like we touched on a little bit at the beginning, RLCS is going to take a break until the last week in January before we start regional events again for the winter split. And so the January transfer window is, for all intents and purposes, open. I don't know if teams are officially allowed to sign players yet or not, but for all intents and purposes, there will be tryouts, there will be drops, there will be rumors, and we will do our very best to bring you whatever information we can as quickly as possible and try to keep everyone in all the rosters straight in our heads and notes when we bring them to you.
Absolutely. And also stay tuned, because if we do have a slow week where nothing happens, we may actually have something, some variety show, potpourri of podcasting, RLCS goodness for you.
Yeah, we got a couple of interesting interviews in the works that we're looking to try and bring to you guys. Staying with our Wednesday morning upload schedule, so we will try to get those out to you in addition to any kind of transfer rumor content that comes out. But until next time, thank you so much for listening, and remember to always choose Boost over Ball. Thank you for listening to the Boost Over Ball podcast.